Tyler, the Creator, has just released his 8th studio album, CHROMAKOPIA, and surprise, surprise, I thought it was really good. So as we did with Don Toliver's newest record, ignore that this thumbnail is for a video that was completely scrapped, we're going to be ranking every single track on CHROMAKOPIA on this beautiful tier list you see on screen right now. Now just a disclaimer, these tiers are going to be relative to the album, so if I put a track in D tier, it doesn't mean it's a D tier song in general, but rather a D tier song for CHROMAKOPIA standards, if that makes sense. Also keep in mind that I'm writing this about 12 hours after the project dropped, so these rankings are definitely subject to change in the coming weeks. But with all of that out of the way, let's just get started with track 1. Saying Chroma is simply one of Tyler's best ever intro songs in my opinion. Obviously this track was the first glimpse we got of the album back in the Saying Chroma teaser, and the snippet couldn't have gotten me more excited for CHROMAKOPIA with just how great it sounded. And for once, I'm happy to report that this full track certainly lived up to my expectations, probably even exceeded them a little bit. The extended intro adds even more hype than it did with the teaser when the beat eventually does drop, and Tyler's verse post-drop sets up a lot of the motifs of the record very well. And I know right now I'm mostly comparing the full song to the snippet, but obviously the song itself has great bones. Gorgeous Daniel Caesar backing vocals, which you'll see is a big trend in this track list, and production is also a major standout, from the stomps in the intro to the crazy sirens that come in during the drop. There's also the whisper delivery that Tyler hits us with in the intro that's actually grown on me a pretty insane amount.
See, I don't usually like this kind of ASMR rap style, but something about it with Tyler just ends up working for me for whatever reason.
Saying Chroma is just a ridiculously strong intro track that still manages to leave room for even better tracks later in the track list, which is really all you can ask for an intro track in my opinion. I'm gonna go A tier with it.
She ain't never met no one who talk like that. And if you hang up on a nigga, bitch, I call right back.
Aside from its pretty goofy name, the second track on CHROMAKOPIA really keeps the quality relatively high. While I find it a little less dynamic than Saying Chroma, Rah Tah Tah still has a lot going for it. Again, production is probably my favorite aspect. Tyler is just so good at making banger instrumentals filled with all these weird zips and zaps that keep the beat from getting repetitive. Truly just a testament to the man's producing ability. It's actually nuts how he's able to top himself with every release. Now as for Tyler's rapping on the song, something I noticed is that he's really gotten a lot more animated with his delivery, which for the most part really enhances the lines. However, there is the occasional inflection from him that really just doesn't hit the ears right in my opinion, so it's kind of a hit or miss thing. Who knows though, maybe the wackier vocals will eventually grow on me with more listens. Last thing I'll mention is with the lyricism. In short, I think it's pretty fun. Far from the best writing on the album, but Tyler comes through with some good quotables on here. You've got lines like, I'm a bona fide face seat box muncher, as you'll see Tyler's really in his freak bag for most of this album. There's also never let them see the color model make your semi-truck, which I just find funny since he subs out dump truck for semi-truck when referring to ass. Cause you know, he's a modest guy, he likes A-cups after all. So while this song isn't knocking my socks off or anything, it's still a simple, fun bang-a-langer, which seems like what it's going for anyways. I would probably say B tier with this one.
I can't even buy a home in private. Home invasions got my brothers dying. Notice every car that's driving by. I think my neighbors want me.
Now that the whole album is out, I really feel like Noid was the perfect lead single, since in a lot of ways it functions as the centerpiece of the record. Sound-wise, the track is probably the peak of the album so far. The instrumentation is phenomenal. First, you've got those constant guitar hits that I swear just come in at random at some points, constantly building and releasing the tension. Really adds to the paranoid vibe. Tyler also has some super catchy flows on here, like the run-on flow in the first verse, and especially the left shoulder, right shoulder refrain he hits in the second. And of course there's the memorable chorus in Nyanja, which is a sample from the Zambian band Ngozi Family. Apologies for the pronunciation, by the way. It not only adds to the theme of Tyler reconnecting with his African roots that he touches on later in the album, but it also still invokes a paranoid sentiment when translated into English. And that's probably Noid's greatest aspect, the fact that nearly every single element of the song adds to the track's main feeling. Hell, even the music video has a ton of its own layers to it, all adding to the message. It's incredible. But talking about lyrics now, I gotta get this out of the way first, I'm sorry, but Tyler says "feel it in my aura" on like line 3, and I can't stop thinking about it. In all seriousness though, I know other artists have covered the topic of paranoia in songs, but I truly don't think I've heard another track that tackles the subject in such a captivating way. There's a line in the second verse where Tyler mentions he's been, quote, shook since 19 when he first blew up, and with that you can really tell how long he's wanted to get this feeling off of his chest. And that exasperation really comes through in both his delivery and some of his lines. Overall, I think Noid is a masterclass in theming, which really just takes the track up to the next level in my opinion. Definitely our first S tier of the video, but certainly not the last. And speak of the devil, I think we already have our next S tier here. First of all, let's talk about Tizo Touchdown's feature. I need an album from this man as soon as humanly possible. He absolutely kills it with the background vocals. And in general, this song sounds so pretty with the poppier rhythm of the drums and all the smooth, jazzy synth harmonies. Not to mention, it's like perfect for fall weather. I have no idea why, but it just gives me such a strong mental image of the leaves turning red and the weather cooling down. I love it. This is also the first track on the album that features Tyler singing in a greater capacity. And while he certainly doesn't have a set of pipes on him like Tizo, I actually think he does super well here vocally. Even his falsetto in the hook is really catchy, which I did not expect in the slightest. But what I undoubtedly love the most about Darling I is its structure, oddly enough. It's pretty simple, but I just feel like Tyler's tracks excel when they follow the format of catchy hook, followed by smooth and lyrically on-point rap verse from Tyler, back to hook, and then stunning outro. It's just got the perfect flow to it, with little to no wasted time. I also want to touch on the lyrics too, since they fully dive into one of Chromakopia's largest themes other than paranoia, that being Tyler's worries towards getting older and inevitably having to settle down. Throughout the song, Tyler details his complex feelings towards monogamy, even making a parallel between his multiple partners and his car collection, explaining the different reasons he loves each of them. But I also really like how he expresses his opposition to commitment through his own flaws, like when he says, "'Cause honestly, T's not perfect, so how can I get everything from one person?" There's also the final 4 lines of the song where he wraps up his thoughts with, "But when that gray hair finally come, at least I felt something if I ain't find the one. Nobody could fulfill me like this music shit does, so I'll be lonely with these Grammys when it's all said and done." And I just adore this kind of melancholic optimism these lines portray. It just really stuck with me upon first listen. I know it's a bit early to call it, but I genuinely think that Darling I could make my top 10 all-time favorite Tyler the Creator tracks. It is near perfect in my opinion. So yeah, it's going in S tier for sure.
Hey Jane, your hair long and your legs long, and we can both relate to the fact that our dad's gone. Couple good qualities on.
And if you thought Darling I had a strong writing performance from Tyler, Hey Jane dives even deeper into the themes set up across this record, with a very intriguing concept for the song. As you could probably guess from the title, Hey Jane sees Tyler rapping about an unplanned pregnancy with the titular Jane, further going into his feelings towards being a parent at this point in his life. Verse number 1 shows Tyler having the first conversation with Jane as he finds out the news, and he dives into a ton of interesting ideas. Like when he mentions that he's truly terrified of taking such a shortcut to commitment with Jane, especially when he admits that he doesn't even fully know her at this point. Or when he expresses his stress towards the situation, but still shows the self-awareness to understand that Jane is likely going through a lot worse. And he wraps the verse up by doing the best thing he can in the situation, reminding Jane that it's ultimately her decision and that he'll support her either way. It's really sweet. Already a super well-written first verse, but Tyler ups the ante even more when he switches perspectives to Jane in the second. And man, some of the stuff he raps about from Jane's voice is so heartbreaking. Like when Jane details how she might regret not keeping this baby given she's getting older and older every day, or when she seemingly references a previous accidental pregnancy she went through at 24 but cuts herself off before fully going into it. That part is just so tragic. And another thing I can really appreciate about the song's subject matter is that it isn't tackled in a crude way, when it so easily could have been, given it's literally about Tyler impregnating a woman. The track to me strongly feels like the Wilshire of this album, especially with the more minimal instrumental compared to the others on here. But it's wild just how much better Tyler has gotten as a storyteller from even Call Me If You Get Lost, and Hey Jane is one of Chromakopia's greatest examples of that. Definitely not the most listenable track, but I'd still say it's a pretty safe A tier.
I killed you, taking you out. It's not a game full of shame, so we straighten you out. Without a doubt, bitch, I killed you.
We've had nothing short of an exceptional 5-track run on this album so far, but I do think the quality dips a little bit with track number 6, I Killed You. Now, don't get me wrong, the writing is still very high quality, with this whole track's theme being a double entendre between Tyler messing with his natural black hair and killing his self-confidence because of it. Not only is it another great topic to tackle in relation to the overarching narrative of Tyler reconnecting with his black culture, but there are some really clever double entendres laced into the bars. Like when he says full of shame so he straightened you out in reference to both his hair and, assumedly, his sexuality. But my main problem with the track more than anything is wasted potential. See, with a track title like I Killed You, I kinda subconsciously expected a track inspired by some of Tyler's more unhinged older works like Bastard or Goblin. And I just don't think that the sound of the song does enough to give me that chaotic feeling it seems like it's going for. It just feels like the track never reaches its peak energy. It's like a constant build-up with no nice release, which doesn't work nearly as well as it does on Noid in my opinion. There's also Childish Gambino's part that I touched on a little bit earlier. While he's not bad on the song, I don't think his background vocals add nearly as much as Daniel Caesar's or Tizo's by comparison, although this genius annotator seems to strongly disagree. Of course, it's still a very well-crafted track, but for Chromakopia standards, I think I would put it in C tier.
Said she never do this, but she think that I'm sweet, so I won't judge.
And unfortunately, if I Killed You as a slight dip in quality for the record, then Judge Judy is damn near a nosedive. Like, what the actual fuck happened here? Remember how I said I appreciated how Hey Jane avoided being overly crass despite its subject matter? Yeah, well, Judge Judy doesn't grant that same luxury. The first two verses of the song tell the story of Tyler meeting a woman named Judy, and he goes into a pretty off-putting level of detail with some of the bars. Literally the second line of the song, he's singing about her breasts were near her chest and she had curls that hit her face. Like, bro, where else would they be? And then when he says, I asked her what she into, she told me lead the way, body rubs, bondage, and cream pies we could play. Around in public, and these cameras now a fetish, I imagine. Free for foot massages, giving oral is my passion. Look, I can appreciate the anti-kink shaming message of the song, but the way Tyler words these explicit lines when combined with this weirdly creepy melody he hits in the verses, it just makes my skin crawl.
Public any comments now a fetish, I imagine. Free for foot massages, giving oral.
Like, bro, you're not The Weeknd. He's the only man that can make lines as deplorable as this sound sexy. And then there's this part near the end where the beat builds up into this beautiful, soulful outro, and it's just absolutely ruined by Tyler moaning like every 3 seconds. Like, what the fuck is happening, man? Admittedly, I do love the slower, cutesy instrumental, and the third verse where Tyler reveals that Judy has died through a letter she wrote to him, but that just doesn't do enough to save the song in my opinion. Easy D tier, probably F tier if I had it on this tier list, and maybe even the worst track Tyler has released since Flower Boy. Thankfully, Judge Judy's a massive outlier compared to the rest of Chromakopia's track list, and we get right back into high-quality songs with Sticky. This track is like the already explosive Rah Tah Tah, but on steroids. It's got a ludicrous amount of energy. You've got those hard-ass drums and percussion with that abrasive whistling melody, the screaming horns that come in every once in a while, and there's literally points where the featured artists are just fucking screaming in the background while Tyler's delivering his lines in the zaniest way. One might say it really makes the track stick with you. And talking about the features, I think Glorilla, Sexy Red, and Lil Wayne all come through with great mini verses. Although I really wish Tyler didn't edge us with such short parts from each of them. Especially Wayne, he could have gone crazy on this beat. Still though, 4 Wayne bars on a Tyler album is better than no Wayne bars, I guess. Now lyrically speaking, there's not much substance in my opinion, kinda similar to Rah Tah Tah again, but there are some fun lines again, like give a fuck about pronouns, I'm that neighbor and that bitch. Also, big dick neighbor, big stomping through your town, all the bi bitches know the fuck is going down, that's a bet, skip the sex, ride my face, break my neck. Another absolute bang-a-langer of a tune. Dare I say, a slapper, a thumper even. I'm gonna go A tier with it.
I hope you find yourself. I hope you take your mask off.
Damn. This song is incredible, maybe my favorite across the entire album. There are just so many amazing aspects to Take Your Mask Off, I don't even know where to start. It's another track like Darling I with a really hokey, warm instrumental filled with a ton of great sonic moments, and the sound works perfectly with the heartfelt message the song has. See, across Tyler's 4 verses, he raps from 4 different perspectives of people hiding their true feelings towards their respective lives. The first being a child who turns to the street life as he grows up in order to seem cool, despite his upper middle class upbringing, and this eventually leads to the man facing 5 to 10 years in jail for his actions. Next, Tyler focuses on a Christian preacher with a secret double life of sleeping with men despite his internalized homophobia. An even stronger verse in my opinion, it's amazing to hear Tyler comment on the struggle many queer Christians face after struggling to come to terms with his own sexuality years earlier on Flower Boy. Then there's the third verse, which continues the upward trajectory still. It follows a woman who regrets her position in life as a stay-at-home mom, even touching on her struggles with postpartum depression. And it's absolutely devastating to hear some of the details, like this one line, body ain't been the same, postpartum is long, your identity gone, just cuts right through me, man, even though I can't directly relate. And as for the final verse, Tyler wraps it up by talking about his own attempts at hiding behind a mask, really diving deep into some of his biggest insecurities. He calls his clothing line a failure, says his music isn't good enough, and even shames himself for the relationship that he almost ruined in the story of Call Me If You Get Lost. And he really caps it off with the line, claim you never wore a mask and how you don't get embarrassed, boy you selfish as fuck, that's why you scared of being a parent, explaining the cockiness and braggadocio displayed in previous tracks. Tyler himself is wearing a mask to hide his deepest insecurities and paranoid thoughts, as we literally see on the cover. Like Noid, it's another track that masterfully weaves together all of the themes of Chromakopia. Like, I'll never forget hearing the song for the first time and everything just immediately clicking as soon as I got to the 4th verse. And with it being capped off with a super catchy Daniel Caesar-backed hook, Take Your Mask Off is a borderline masterpiece in my opinion. Another easy S tier.
What's gotten into me? Now that ain't the energy, that version of T that you knew was a memory. Who is that? You niggas.
First thing I'll say about Tomorrow is that it officially breaks Tyler's tradition of having a 2-part track as the 10th song on all of his albums. Very sad to see this tradition go, as those 2-parters were always highlights of their respective records, but with the give a fuck about traditions line on Chroma, it does make sense. Anyways, as for the song itself, Tomorrow's definitely more of a grower, I think. The song continues Tyler's thoughts on having a family, though here he dives into more of the pressure he feels from his own mother since she's also getting older. Obviously not a new topic by any means, but there are some pretty nice lines we get in here, like the Kanye interpolation, as well as "Fear it, face clear, few wrinkles on my spirit," which I think just sounds really cool. It's also another track that displays Tyler's improved singing in my opinion, certainly a lot better than Judge Judy. And again, the build-up that this song has is very well done. I especially love the strings that come in near the end. Can't say this track was a strong enough replacement for a classic two-parter, but it's still pretty great in its own right. I'll go B tier. And as for our last full-fledged banger on Chromakopia, it's easily my favorite out of the three. Obviously another song that was teased before the album dropped, and I just gotta say, I absolutely love how Tyler hides the features on his tracks for his music videos. It always makes for such a fun surprise when we get to hear them. In this song's case, it's Schoolboy Q, who expectedly comes through with a great verse, although still a little too short for me, admittedly. But still, I think Tyler's third verse is by far the most impressive. I mean, just look how long it is. He absolutely goes off with a verse loaded with animated vocal inflections and quotables. Pull up old tweets, pull up old t-shirts, all that, I'll moonwalk over that bitch. I got too much drive, I'm a terabyte. 5 in the morning, I be hating on shit. 10 in the evening, I be hating on shit. And then my personal favorite, I'm a big troll, haha, I'm silly. I also noticed with this song in particular, Tyler really makes use of a lot of cool military influences throughout this album. You've got the marching cadence on the opener, some of the trailers have an army look to them, and Thought I Was Dead features this really cool Santa Gold sample in the intro. You don't wanna go to war with a soldier. You don't wanna. And speaking of production, it is fucking nuts, maybe even more so than Sticky. This bears repeating, Tyler is so goddamn good at crafting the nastiest beats for his songs. For the third and final time, Bang-A-Langer. A tier. Now so far, I've been seeing a lot of people call Like Him the best track on Chromakopia. And I mean, it makes sense given it's a track where Tyler talks about his absent father, definitely strongly reminds me of Answer, one of Tyler's all-timers. But if I'm being honest, I do think Like Him is a little disappointing in comparison. I'll start with the positives though, since there is a lot going for the track. For one, production is as expected phenomenal. The somber piano that eventually transitions into an electric guitar section in the drop, it's all stunning. Not to mention the outro by Tyler's mother being one of the saddest things across the entire album. But my absolute favorite part has to be the single ad-lib Baby Keem gets to do on the song before he immediately goes back into hiding. Really taking a page out of Frank Ocean's book, it seems. Please, Frank, come back. Tyler literally dropped on your birthday and we didn't even get a feature. Please! However, I feel like despite the concept, Tyler just doesn't dive far enough into it to create an incredibly captivating song like Take Your Mask Off or Hey Jane, for example. I feel like the track could have heavily benefited from another great rap verse from Tyler in the middle, detailing his feelings towards his father more than 10 years after the release of Answer. But as it stands with that one, it's mostly just pretty lackluster singing in the verses with a decent enough hook. Probably my hottest take of the entire tier list, but I think I'm gonna go B tier with Like Him.
No BBLs, I like 8 cups. Long legs pretty when they wake up. Niggas run they mouth.
Balloon has gotta be the least sonically cohesive track on the album, but man, is it such a grower. First off, I cannot get over the instrumental. Those upbeat warbly synths in the melody and the bright piano chords, this is just a happy slappy ass beat. Plus it's got a pretty weird but cool sample of I Wanna Rock by Luke, also famously sampled in Sicko Mode. And I'll be honest, I thought this track was simply way too goofy for me at first, but after a few re-listens, it just infected me with positive energy, to the point where it's one of my favorites. Even if Tyler's verse isn't all that special when compared to some of the others on the record, I think his more confident lyrics mesh very well with the more anthemic sound. But by far the best aspect of the track has gotta be Doechie's verse. She might have the best rap feature on the record. Her insane vocal inflections paired with some of the diabolical lyrics she spits, all as the instrumental continues building up in spectacle, it makes for one of the best moments across the entire track list in my opinion.
I don't need a range, but I got an airport. I don't need a plane cause the airport flow.
And that's also a massive compliment to Tyler as well. Dude really does not get enough credit for having top tier feature placement across his albums. Part of me does feel like I'm overhyping the track a little bit due to recency bias, since I predicted it's going to be considered one of the weakest as the album settles. But I mean, I can only get my true feelings on it in this moment, and in this moment, I'm feeling A tier with it. And as for the closing track on Chromakopia, I think it's pretty weak, unfortunately. I think it's the track's tempo that holds it back the most for me. It just feels way too slow for me personally, making it kinda drag as it continues. Talking about lyrics too, maybe it's just because the track is literally the closer of the album, but at this point I think some of the themes being repeated have gotten a little dull. And it's not like Tyler really puts a new spin on them like in other tracks. He kinda just references the unplanned pregnancy from Hey Jane again and fits in some flexing with cars and such. Not bad topics to rap about per se, but just a little tired is all. Sound-wise as well, I don't find it all too special, again in comparison to the other tracks on the record. I will say though, that nasty synth solo in the outro really hooked me back in the last minute. Anyways, I think I'm gonna go C tier for this one. And there we have it, all of the rankings for every track on Tyler the Creator's CHROMAKOPIA. I know we ended on a pretty lackluster note, but I should clarify again if it wasn't clear already, this album is great. One of my favorites of the year. Tyler killed it for the most part. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel to see new uploads from me every single Saturday and sometimes Wednesday unless I say otherwise in my community posts. Also leave a comment letting me know your favorite and least favorite song on the record and why down below. And finally, as always, if you'd like to support the channel further, you can now become a member and receive early access to all of my videos, as well as a special shout out from me at the end of them, as you'll see on screen right now. So join up if you're interested, it really does help me out a lot. But yeah, that's about it. CHROMAKOPIA.